Example 3. Consider this country with 4 states. The rules for the number of senators and electors are the same as the U.S. government. Each state will get 1 representative for every 40,000 residents. For simplicity, we're going to ignore any remainders. A says, suppose if you win the majority of electoral votes, you win the election. How many electoral votes are needed to win? In order to determine this, we need to know how many electoral votes each state receives. So we'll start with the small state. If we get 1 representative for every 40,000 residents, we can determine how many representatives we'll have by dividing our population by 40,000. When we do that division, we get 3.865. We are going to ignore any remainders, leaving us with 3 representatives. For medium state, we will take the population and divide once again by 40,000. That gives us 6.5585. Once again, we are ignoring the remainders, leaving us with just the number 6. For large state, when we do our division, we'll get just over 14, so we will have 14 representatives. And for huge state, when we do our division, we'll get just over 21, so we'll have 21 representatives. Since we are following the U.S. government rules, every state will receive 2 senators. Now that we know how many representatives there will be and how many senators there will be, we can determine the number of electors by finding the sum of the representatives and the senators. So small state has 5 electors, medium has 8, large state will have 16, and huge will have 23. Now that we have this table filled in, we'll see that there are 52 total votes. 50% of that would be 26, and we want more than 50%, so we'll add 1 to that number, giving us 27 votes needed to win the election. B says to determine which candidate wins the popular vote and the electoral college vote for this election. Assume each state uses winner takes all. As you can see, we have this table here to help us with answering this question. In our table, we are given the number of votes each candidate received for each state. Candidate A received 1,011,073 votes, and candidate B received 849,072 votes. Now we can determine how many electoral votes each candidate receives based on the number of votes they got within each state. Let's start with the small state. Looking at candidate A versus candidate B with winner takes all, candidate B will receive all 5 votes. For medium, we can see that candidate B, once again, will receive all 8 votes. Candidate B also won the majority votes in large state, giving them all 16 votes. And candidate A won the majority votes in huge state. So they will receive all 23 votes. Since it's a winner takes all, the other candidate gets 0 in each of those states. We can tally up the total number of electoral votes candidate A received, which is 23, and the total number of electoral votes candidate B receives, which is 29. From this, we can see that B won the election because they received the most electoral votes. However, looking at the population votes, we can see that candidate A won via the popular vote. C says to write down all possible combinations of states that would win the election based on the electoral college. Essentially what this means is to write down as many different combinations of winning states. For example, huge has 23 electoral votes. A candidate only needs 27. Based on that, if a candidate could win huge and any other state, they would win the election. And then the only combination to win without involving huge would be if you had all 3 other states voting for a candidate, which is what happened in this election that we're looking at. D says, what is the fewest number of individual votes needed to win the electoral college? Well, we just saw that the smallest number of electoral votes that would win would be 28. That would be a combination of huge and small voting for a candidate. If we want to know what the fewest number of individual votes we would need, we would want to figure out what is the smallest number of votes a candidate needs for each individual state. Essentially, what would be the smallest majority? What number is needed for a majority? Well, for huge, we'll take their population, 862,070, and divide by 2, giving us 431,035. To win huge, a candidate needs to receive 431,036 votes. For the state of small, our population is 154,600. 50% of that would be 77,300, meaning we will need 77,301 votes for a majority. If we combine those two numbers together, we will get that a candidate would need to receive 508,337 votes to win the election. That is the fewest number of individual votes they would need to win the election. Part E says, what is the smallest percent of population that you can win the Electoral College with? Well, we just found that we would need 508,337 votes. To figure out what percentage of the population that is, we can take that number and divide by the total population. That will give us approximately 27.3% of the population.